chant a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, which is also mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is verse Canto 12, chapter 13 and text 15. Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Tat Rasamrita Triptasya Tat Rasamrita Triptasya Na Anyatra Syat Ratihi Kvachit Nanyatra Syat Rati Kvachit Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Tad Rasamrita Triptasya Nanyatra Syadrati Kvachit Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Tad Rasamrita Triptasya Nanyatra Syadrati Kvachit Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate Tad Rasamrita Triptasya Nanyatra Syadrati Kvachit. Synonyms: Sarva Vedanta Saram, the best part of all the Vedanta. He, certainly. Srimad Bhagavatam, the great literature about Bhagavan. Ishyate, is accepted. Tat Rasa Amrita, by the transcendental mellow derived from that great literature. Triptasya, of one who is satisfied. Na, never. Anyatra, anywhere else. Syat, is. Ratihi, attraction. Kvachit, at any time. Translation and repetition by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam is accepted as the essence of all Vedic literature and Vedanta philosophy. Whoever tastes the transcendental mellow of Srimad Bhagavatam is never attracted to any other literature. Translation with repetition. Srimad Bhagavatam is accepted as the essence of all Vedic literature and Vedanta philosophy. Whoever tastes the transcendental mellow of Srimad Bhagavatam is never attracted to any other literature. There is no purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, as part of this Kartik month, we have been discussing the 5 important devotional limbs as recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So far we discussed Sadhu Sangha and Nama Kirtana. Starting today, we'll be discussing about Bhagavata Sravana. So, the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam and the importance of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So, today we will briefly talk about some aspects of what Srimad Bhagavatam is and and uh, and from whom we should not hear Bhagavatam and from whom we should hear Bhagavatam. So these are some aspects we'll try to touch upon. And so this verse, there are many verses in Srimad Bhagavatam itself which talk about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is one of them. So in fact, in the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, the first 3 verses describe about Srimad Bhagavatam. And there are description about how Bhagavatam came about, as we see in the discussion between Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. Similarly, towards the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is also the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam is described within the Bhagavatam, where there are furthermore aspects about Bhagavatam are described. And this is one of those verses from that section, where it is said, Sarva Vedanta Saram hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate. Sarva Vedanta Saram, the best part of all Vedanta, or in other words, the essence of all Vedic literature and Vedanta philosophy is said to be contained in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, this is very important for us to note that why Bhagavata Sravana has been mentioned specifically by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considers places Srimad Bhagavatam on a very high level as Amala Purana. There are 18 Puranas, but amongst all of them, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving a great importance for especially Gaudiya Vaishnavas to study Srimad Bhagavatam. And here within Bhagavatam we can see that this book, this literature is accepted as the essence of all Vedic literature and Vedanta philosophy. Sarva Vedanta Saram hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate. And furthermore it is being said here that Tat Rasamrita Triptasya. So it is said here that if anyone tastes the mellows of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is not easy to taste actually the transcendental mellows of Srimad Bhagavatam, but for one who tastes that transcendental mellow of Srimad Bhagavatam, what happens to them? Nanyatra syad rati kvachit. At any point of time, for one who is experiencing or tasting the nectarian transcendental mellows of Srimad Bhagavatam, they will not be attracted to any other literature. So this is one very unique glory of Srimad Bhagavatam, that if one is attracted to it, they will not be attracted to any other literature. Now, on a similar lines, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj says that if all the books in the world are burnt, what that one book, if it is still there, that is enough. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj says that if Srimad Bhagavatam is there intact and rest all books of the world are burnt, still nothing is lost. So one can see the importance that is placed by our Acharyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, on Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is considered very, very dear to Vaishnavas. So Vaishnavas take great pleasure in reading, serving Srimad Bhagavatam. So what is this Srimad Bhagavatam that is so unique? So there is a lot about Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's not easy to actually get into the depth of understanding what Bhagavatam is fully, but we will briefly talk about what Bhagavatam is. So one place where this discussion about Bhagavatam that comes about is in the discussion between Prakashananda Saraswati and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when Prakashananda Saraswati is a Mayavadi sannyasi, And upon seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanting and dancing, they all thought, what kind of a sannyasi is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? That he is not actually following Vedanta philosophy, he is not acting like a sannyasi. He is supposed to meant to read Vedanta and behave like a sober person instead of jumping, dancing, and singing. So, in that regard, there is a conversation where first Prakashananda Saraswati understands the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, understands who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, and the importance of holy name. And then there is also this discussion about um, Prakashananda Saraswati asks Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to explain from the Vedanta Sutra that what he is supposed to understand, what is the real meaning of Vedanta Sutra, and how is he supposed to understand. So it is in that context Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also explains the significance of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is another place where there's considerable discussion happens about what Srimad Bhagavatam is with respect to the Vedic literatures and why it is important to study Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is in that context Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presents that why Prakashananda Saraswati and all others should very scrutinizingly study Srimad Bhagavatam and study Nityam or always or every day. So the first point to note is that there are 4 Vedas and 108 Upanishads, and there is Mahabharata, Ramayana. So there are different corpus of Vedic literature that is present. But it is said that whatever that is present in the 4 Vedas and 108 Upanishads, Vyasadeva has condensed the important conclusions from all the Upanishads and all the Vedas in Brahma Sutra or the Vedanta Sutra. So we must know that Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedas and the Upanishads, and he is presenting all the essence of all of that in Brahma Sutras or the Vedanta Sutras. Now, that Vedanta Sutra is said to contain the purport of all Vedic knowledge that is described in Vedas and Upanishads. And Srimad Bhagavatam is said to explain the Brahma Sutras. That means, so as we saw in this verse, Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi. So how is that it is Sarva Vedanta Saram? That is being explained here. That means that all the conclusions which are given in all these literatures are present in Brahma Sutras, Vedanta Sutras, and that are further vividly explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, if one scrutinizingly reads Srimad Bhagavatam, one is said to have all the conclusions that is found in Vedas and Upanishads. So therefore, one who studies Bhagavatam will not miss anything, but rather he will have everything that can be obtained, the knowledge that can be obtained from any other literature. So this is one very important point, that it has all the Vedic knowledge that is required for one to know. And then the question may come that what is that knowledge that is so essential to the Vedic knowledge? What is that the Vedas contain in essence that is present in Srimad Bhagavatam could be a natural question. So that is also explained here, that the Vedas contain 3 primary subjects of knowledge. That is Sambandha Gnan, Abhidheya Gnan, and Prayojana Gnan. So the Sambandha Gnan is to understand one's relationship to Krishna. So who is Krishna and what is my relationship to Krishna? So that is Sambandha Gnan. And once one understands that Krishna is the center of everything, of all existence, and even for my life, then what are the activities that one is supposed to perform? That constitutes the Abhidheya Gnan. And then, if I have to perform certain activities, it must have an objective, it must have a purpose. So what is the purpose of performing those activities? That is said to be the Prayojana. So according to Srimad Bhagavatam, the prime object of our relationship is Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, who is the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is said, Satyam Param Dhimahi, that one should meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead always. So, in this, it is said that the act of Abhideya, that is, to render devotional service, is also explained in the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. And furthermore, it is said that what is the prayojana that is to be obtained by performing devotional service is to experience the transcendental mellows in relationship with the Supreme Lord, especially the transcendental mellows that is experienced in love of God. And it is said Srimad Bhagavatam also describes all of those mellows. And therefore, it is said that the Srimad Bhagavatam contains all these three aspects in complete. And in fact, it is said that this is covered within the 4 Chatushloki verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that this is the Vedanta Saram, it has everything, and there is no need for any other literature. Na anyatra. There is no need. And one who derives the transcendental mellows from Srimad Bhagavatam does not need to engage with any other literature. So, that is briefly the one aspect of description about what Srimad Bhagavatam is. So, Srimad Bhagavatam has 12 cantos, and it has 35 chapters and 18,000 verses. It is said that all the Puranas combined together, they have 400,000 verses. So it's a quite huge corpus of literature. So many verses, 400,000. But Bhagavatam contains 18,000 verses. So in fact, in that sense, it's not one of the biggest Puranas compared to some of the other Puranas, which are quite big. So there is more that is described about what is the content in specific about. So one can see that throughout Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam has this unique quality that it does not divert an inch from describing anything which is not related to Krishna. So that is, as Prabhupada translates in this verse, that Srimad Bhagavatam, very interestingly, Prabhupada translates the great literature about Bhagavan. That's how Prabhupada is translating Srimad Bhagavatam. So everything that is mentioned in Bhagavatam is directly connected to the Supreme Lord and his devotees. And therefore, everything about is transcendental. There is no mundane mixture of three modes of material nature, or any content which is not related to the absolute truth. And therefore, it is said Amala Purana, which is completely pure, free from all mixture of modes of material nature. And therefore, anyone who touches it can be raised to the transcendental platform very easily. And then there are a lot of different aspects that can be talked about Srimad Bhagavatam. One very important aspect that one can see is also how the Srimad Bhagavatam comes about. So, the origin of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, one can see that this knowledge is given to Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yat Suryaha. So, this knowledge was revealed unto the heart of Brahmaji. So, Brahmaji received this knowledge, and Brahma then gives this knowledge to Narada, and Narada inspires Vyasadeva to compile this knowledge. So, this essence of Vedic knowledge is coming in a parampara disciple succession. So, it is very important, one very important aspect which Prabhupada again and again emphasizes about, and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasizes, is how to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, how to understand the import of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because Srimad Bhagavatam was present even before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But it is said that the real import of Srimad Bhagavatam came about only after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who has included the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So basically, one important point which Srila Prabhupada again and again emphasizes is how to understand Bhagavatam. Just because there is a book Bhagavatam, can anyone and everyone appreciate the transcendental mellows of Srimad Bhagavatam? It is said no. So there is a specific way to approach Srimad Bhagavatam and learn Srimad Bhagavatam. And importantly, there are also certain things or certain ways of not approaching Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is very important for one to understand this. Otherwise, one can be misled even in the name of studying Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada in one of the lecture emphasizes about these points. So I'll just briefly first touch upon some points where Prabhupada is saying that from whom we should hear Harikatha or Srimad Bhagavatam and from whom we should not hear. So, first thing Prabhupada mentions is that one should not hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a professional reciter. So professional reciters are those who recite Srimad Bhagavatam to make a living. So they make money out of reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and interestingly, sometimes the way they narrate sounds much more interesting than others. So their presentation, be it in the form of singing, be it in the form of poetry, be it in the form of the different tunes and meters and the rhetoric, the grammar, they may use such wonderful words that people may be enamored by the language that they are speaking, the way they are speaking. But the intent, the purpose for which they speak is completely different. For them, the agenda is how to get more followers and how to make more money. In today's age, there is another kind of professional reciters who are interested in how many likes they are going to get. So sometimes people have a different agenda behind speaking Harikatha. So people of those kind are not to be, from them one is not supposed to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes one gets attracted, oh, he's speaking so nicely, so I'll just listen to him. But that is completely rejected here. And Prabhupada gives an example to state how this is considered to be not right thing. Because after all, people will say, this is Bhagavatam, which is transcendental literature, which is all pure. Wherever I'm hearing from, how does it matter? From wherever I hear, if it is nice, I should get benefit out of it. So this is the common perception. But Prabhupada gives the example of Avaishnava Mukhodgirinam Putam Hari Kathamritam Shravanam Naiva Kartavyam. So, Avaishnava, and further it is said, Sarpochestam Yatha Payaha. So just like milk may be all nutritious and all good, but when a snake, it is touched by the lips of a snake and it becomes poison. So the milk may be good, but when it comes in contact with snake, it becomes poison. So similarly, although Bhagavatam is all pure, but when it is spoken by a professional reciter, its real import is covered. The real benefit that is to be derived out of it is covered. And rather it is said that both the speakers and the admirers, they both go to hell. Or they don't go to the place where they're supposed to go. So one must be very careful from whom one is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. The other example that is given from whom we should not hear is from a Mayavadi. This is another very important principle. That sometimes when Mayavadis speak on Bhagavatam, just like the other day I was meeting someone and they run a very big online Sanskrit website. And they said, Swamiji, we are having 1 week Bhagavata Katha in Dwarka. Can you please come and attend online? So people are maybe very expert in Sanskrit, maybe very expert in speaking, but if they are Mayavadis, what they do is that they cover the glory of the Supreme Lord. They will not describe the Supreme Lord as what He is. So they misconstrue the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Although from a grammatical point of view, maybe they are speaking nicely, but from the real import of Srimad Bhagavatam, they will not convey the real intent that the speaker himself, Vyasadeva, wants to convey through Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore, it is recommended that one does not hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a Mayavadi. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, if you hear from a Mayavadi who misinterprets things according to whims, then you will be spoiled, you will not get benefit. So, Mayavadi Bhashya Sunile Hoy Sarvanash. So, it is very important that it is not to, just because it is Srimad Bhagavatam, we can just go and learn from anywhere. No, it is not recommended. So, from whom should we learn Srimad Bhagavatam? That is also mentioned. And this is mentioned by Swarup Damodar Goswami, who was the assistant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says, Bhagavata paro giya Bhagavata sthane. If one has to understand Grantha Bhagavatam, so there are two Bhagavatams. One is the book Bhagavatam and other is the person Bhagavatam. Person Bhagavatam is one who is following, whose life is Bhagavatam. So one has to approach such a person who is a Uttamadhikari, Mahabhagavata, who lives a life of the book Bhagavatam. It is from such individuals, it is from such great exalted devotees, one must understand the import of Bhagavatam. Otherwise, the real import of Bhagavatam is covered. In fact, it is said that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there used to be many devotees who used to come to show some literature, that writing that they write to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But it is said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to go through Swarup Damodar before they come and show to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So unless there was no approval of Swarup Damodar, they wouldn't show it. And in fact, once a Brahmana comes who writes something, but Swarup Damodar does not accept it. And he says that unless you have not heard from a Mahabhagavata or a pure devotee, person Bhagavata, you will not understand the meaning of what the Bhagavatam is saying. So it is very important that Bhagavatam is to be heard from the right sources. If it is not heard from a person Bhagavata, the real import of what it means to render devotional service to the Lord, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what is His transcendental nature, it cannot be understood. So Srila Prabhupada in another place explains that spiritual knowledge, this is a very nice purport where Srila Prabhupada explains what is spiritual knowledge and what is Vijnana. So in this, Prabhupada explains that spiritual knowledge means understanding the nature, transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Vijnana means to take shelter of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these both aspects, so spiritual knowledge means to understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and the practical knowledge or Vijnana means to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by rendering devotional service unto Him. But these two aspects, when heard from a professional reciter or from a Mayavadi philosopher, these two subjects are covered. These are not understood. And therefore, people actually do not get attracted to Krishna or to render devotional service if it is heard from a professional reciter or a Mayavadi philosopher. And therefore, one must be very careful, even if it is Srimad Bhagavatam, if one does not learn in the Parampara system, in the right disciplic succession, then the real benefit or the rasamalayam, the taste, the sweet nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam will not be understood. And one last point, which I would like to touch upon Bhagavatam, is that unlike other literatures, Srimad Bhagavatam, it is as it is said, Dharma projita kaitava atro parmo nirmatsaranam satam. Dharma projita kaitavaha. So kaitava means in which there is fruitive intention or a cheating religion. So there are many religious systems, there are many religious literatures, but not all of them, or in fact most of them, are not free from fruitive intention. That means there is a certain conception about living better in this mundane world. They promote a certain kind of material gain in exchange to religious principles. Everyone is looking how to make their material condition life better. But Srimad Bhagavatam completely rejects that. And therefore, not everyone can appreciate how can Bhagavatam say like that. But this is the highest standard, this is the purest knowledge. So therefore, it is actually meant for Nirmasaranam Satam. So it is meant for 100% pure in heart devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam is not easy to understand. For someone to relish, one must be 100% pure in heart to really fully appreciate the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, which are materially motivated. So the ideas, the religious principles which are materially motivated are not part of Srimad Bhagavatam. Usually people are after dharma, artha, kama and moksha. They're after practicing some religious principles. In the name of religion, they want to do some activities so that they get some economic benefit. That's how most people are. They want to do some yajna, they want to do some kar puja, they want to do something else so that my material things are preserved. My family is taken care. I can live happily in this world. So the economic development is the interest behind performing religious activities. And as soon as there is economic development, there is more sense gratification. People are after different kinds of chasing different desires through this economic activities and development. And when one is frustrated by all of them, one may say, oh, I want to renounce everything. I want to just stay away from everything. Or maybe a little bit interested in the Brahman realization or liberation of that kind. But Srimad Bhagavatam is not encouraging one to take any of these paths, or these are not the goals of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is enabling one to relish the prayojana, the supreme goal of loving God. How to love Krishna. That is the subject matter, which is all pure subject. And it is not easy to understand because for a heart which is materially contaminated, it doesn't sound, how can one can think that there is Supreme Lord behind all this creation, maintenance, annihilation. How is that He is sustaining everything? How can one know the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord? The innumerable wonderful transcendental qualities of the Lord are such that even Sukadeva Goswami, who was an impersonalist, was attracted by hearing the transcendental glories of the Lord. The 4 Kumaras got attracted to the transcendental glories of the Lord. So actually, the transcendental glories of the Lord cannot be understood by any other means except when they are presented by the Lord Himself in His and by His devotees in a book like Srimad Bhagavatam. Otherwise, these subject matters can never be approached by any other means. By any means of speculation, one may go on for years and years. In fact, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj says, even if he blows his nose for millenniums, he cannot understand anything. Someone may try different process of yoga. Someone may follow different process of speculation. But by any of these means, one cannot come to understand, as it is said in Brahma Samhita, Panthastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayo rathapi manaso munipangavana. Even if one may travel at a speed of airplane or the mind uh, uh, for many, many thousands and thousands of years, still one cannot even understand the tip of the toe of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot approach. To transcend the material world and understand what lies behind this material conception of life, the one ultimate reality, is not possible by any other processes other than the process of devotional service, other than approaching through the book of Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said this to be the uh, uh, in order to understand the ultimate knowledge, this is the book by which we can get to the transcendental reality of understanding who the Supreme Lord is, how should we execute our devotional service. And it is filled with narrations of various devotees who have achieved that perfection of how to render devotional service. And one important thing that Prabhupada again and again mentions is that sometimes people try to jump over and try to read only the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And there are some other people who just try to focus on studying the Rasa Leela of Srimad Bhagavatam directly. So it is not recommended for one to directly jump to the 10th canto. So one may question why these nine cantos are given if it is only 10th canto that one must read. So there is a gradual evolution of our spiritual consciousness that Srimad Bhagavatam brings about before we actually can appreciate what the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna are. So there is a reason why Srimad Bhagavatam is presented in a specific way, and Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas have recommended that one should not artificially jump, but rather get purified through these various sections of Srimad Bhagavatam before coming to the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in summary, basically, it is important to recognize that Srimad Bhagavatam has the essence of all the Vedic literatures, and it has the essence of all the Vedanta philosophy, and it is compiled by Vyasadeva himself, who wrote the four Vedas, 108 Upanishads, and he was actually disappointed. He was not satisfied even after doing all this great literary work. And therefore, in the instruction of Narada Muni, he compiles the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is containing the essence of all these literatures, and it only describes about the transcendental glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore it is completely pure, free from all fruitive and materially motivated intentions, and therefore one can derive the highest benefit simply by studying one book, Srimad Bhagavatam. And for one who relishes the transcendental mellows of Srimad Bhagavatam, one would not require any other book. In fact, one will not have taste for any other literature. And it is Srila Prabhupada emphasizes that from whom we should hear Bhagavatam, we should hear Bhagavatam from a person who is person Bhagavata, whose life is Bhagavatam. So one has to approach such a spiritual master to understand the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. The real import of Srimad Bhagavatam will not be understood if one goes to a professional reciter who speaks about Bhagavatam for making a living or for his own sensual enjoyment. And one should not also hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a Mayavadi sannyasi or from a Mayavadi who also covers the real import about the glories of the Supreme Lord in the devotional service. So one must avoid these traps, and one must follow in a parampara system, learn the Srimad Bhagavatam, and by that, by gradual progression as presented in Srimad Bhagavatam, one can get purified to understand the transcendental glories of the Supreme Lord, and therefore this is a wonderful literature. It has wonderful glories from which is described in the first three verses. They themselves take a great amount of time to understand, and similarly, as we see also in the questions that are asked by the sages of Naimisharanya, it is described by Sutta Goswami that Srimad Bhagavatam is that sun which can dissipate the ignorance of Kali Yuga. So it is a wonderful literature by which our ignorance of heart can be dispelled, and one can actually attain the perfection of life. And we will have 5 more sessions following on Bhagavata Sravana. More aspects will be covered about how to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, furthermore glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. So please come and join. We'll stop here. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki